joined us so far. Keela's favourite emoji, the mind-blowing one. I love that one too. If anyone has any other emojis they want to drop in the chat just so we know everything is working, that'd be great.
Got a small glitch with Michael.
Yeah, Michael's camera might be disabled.
You can see me.
Oh, here he is. Okay, we're on.
By the way, Michael, what's your favourite emoji? Surely the Christmas tree.
Just either the Christmas tree or a big grin emoji, because I have a big grin.
Nice.
Both very fitting.
Very good. All right, great, cool. Well, welcome everyone to our second live Talking Talent. Today we have Michael Christmas, as you can see. We're super excited to have him here with us. So, well, welcome, Michael. Sorry about the little glitches just to get started. Okay, great. This also might be another little glitch, but if we have a clip to show from our last session, we're now asking every guest who jumps on the series if they have a question to pass on to the next talent expert. And on the beginning of this month, we had Cara McLeod from Allianz join us, and she asked something really interesting, all to do with candidate experience. So we thought we'd kick that one off with a little bit of a, what do we call it internally? Talent handball. So you can answer this one. Great. Well, we're at time, so I thought we could just maybe finish by letting you ask a question, Cara. So in this series, we want to kind of allow our current guest to ask a question that our next guest might answer, and same with anyone on the chat. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask another talent expert, please feel free to pop it down. But Cara, what's the one question that you would like to ask another talent expert, something that's relevant to you and your work in 2022?
Mm-hmm. So what I'm really leaning into this year is all about candidate experience. And so I would like to ask the question, which is, what are you doing to help a candidate succeed and setting them up to succeed throughout the interview assessment process? What are you doing to help them, not hinder them or make it difficult to set up a challenge or, some kind of crazy puzzle to get them to solve to prove their worth? What are you doing to help someone actually stand out and enjoy the process so that they actually still want to come and work for you at the end of the day?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's multifaceted. I'm sure we'll delve into lots of different details around it this year, but it's a team effort for sure. Like one of the main things is just collaborating with them for now. Like we do a lot of things. We do a planning session all the time. We do a lot of collaboration internally with our people solutions team, who sit within the people experience overall team, which look after a lot of the cultural aspects and a lot of sort of onboarding processes, all the associated elements of growing a refreshed brand and business. But one of the biggest things that we're getting traction on that I think you guys want to talk about later in this chat is our candidate coach site. Just being really supportive, collaborative with our candidates, and really providing that step-by-step, guidance throughout the step as well. So it's very unique to candidates as well. So we can delve into stuff like that as well. But trying to do everything we can in answer to your question. There's a lot of different ways that you can do so. We're constantly uplifting this as well. Don't think that we've got all the answers right now, but we're definitely getting some good traction and have even won some awards for what we're doing with our candidate experience here at Flybuys. So it's going well so far, but it's never over. We're constantly uplifting these things, and so it's a work in progress.
Yeah, great. So all of the collaboration, everything you're doing at Flybuys is amazing. If we put Flybuys to the side for a moment, can we talk a little bit about how your, personal philosophy behind candidate experience has really evolved over your career?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we can all rapport, and that's a point in itself really, is that we're all a candidate at some stage. And I think you just have to have that understanding, rapport, with that element of I'm yet to find people that love looking for and applying and interviewing for roles, looking for a new job, things like that. You can be confident at it. You can do really well. Some people enjoy it more than others, but it's definitely not something that we want to do all the time, for sure. So rapporting with that understanding that it can be tricky, especially in this market when you've got people that are, moving from being in a role for 15, 20 years, or just really unsure about what's happening with their business. There's been so much change over the last couple of years. So it's really nice to be able to just have someone in your corner. So from a personal point of view, I've always just liked that support. I'll probably get a bit of stick. I know that there's some people that I used to work with in previous teams that said they might join today. And I used to get stick from my previous colleagues from this. I always seem to be able to weave in the element that I used to work in television back in the day, different career path that I was taking. But as part of that, we did a lot of, at university when we were looking at broadcast television, one of the roles that I really enjoyed was floor management. So when you're in the studio, you're working with obviously the talent and the cameraman and the audio and the directors. And you really need to make sure that you're providing the next steps of the process constantly. So everyone's on the same page, you know where you're going, and you can work at speed successfully. So as part of that, that's sort of implemented into my world here, being able to constantly communicate, provide those next steps and keep people aware, because one of the biggest elements that you get feedback from candidates is like, oh, I haven't heard feedback. I don't know what's going on. They said they'd get back to me next week and stuff. So we try to provide feedback really quickly. We try to get people information, updates, progression within 24 hours, 48 hours. So we try to keep the process moving pretty quickly. That also stems obviously to this competitive market. I'm well aware, coming from an agency recruitment background, that things move quickly. Lots of other roles can come on into the mix, and you want to obviously stay competitive with all of those. So there's that element. And then when I moved into television production, when I was over in the UK, I worked with a lot of talent as well. And so being able to just treat everyone as equals. So no matter what the level of the role is, whether it's junior or senior, C-level, or graduates, whatever it is, you want to just be that support, that advocate, and that collaborator as well. So that's probably the biggest word as well that I would use to sum up what we're trying to do here at Flybuys, and where my sort of philosophy comes from is collaboration. And I know everyone throws that word around, but it really is something that I stand strongly by, not just internal collaboration with your internal team, not just collaboration with the hiring managers, in the interview process, but collaborating with the candidate. And you can have a lot more success with that, instead of just telling them what the process is or whatever, just collaborating. What's going to make it easier for them? Everyone's individual. Everyone's got their own story, their own background, and different things work for different people. So if you can mold the process and the candidate experience, what's going to work best for them, then they're obviously going to have a nicer experience. They're obviously going to provide, showcase themselves better as well throughout the process. And you're going to have a lot of success both sides as well.
That's a really nice segue into this topic of how do we move away from setting an interview up like an interrogation and how do we collaborate with our candidates and applicants to make sure that it is more of a two-way conversation, and then they don't feel like they're just being slotted into a process that everyone else has been a part of. So I guess, how do you inspire that culture within your talent team to, not just a one-size-fits-all solution in the candidate experience? How do you customize that for each person who comes through the door?
Yeah, 100%. And I like that you've used that word, because I know that we've touched on this when we were organising to do this the other day. And it is a personal thing that I talk about with candidates all the time. I talk with hiring managers about all the time, is exactly that I think it's often misconstrued in the market that an interview means interrogation. And I really don't like that. I think that people, we really want people, especially at Flybuys, to explore their future with Flybuys just as much as we're assessing where they might be able to add value. So I speak with hiring managers from from the onset, from the get-go. And when we do a requirements sort of sync session, I talk through, okay, what do we want the process to be? How can we mold that around the specific role? Because obviously it depends on the level and the different skills that we're looking for, when we're working through what sort of strategy we want to implement with the recruitment process. And so, yeah, just making sure that we're having a peer-to-peer discussion, really. So we want them to be able to get information about Flybuys. We want them to be able to just talk through, is this something that you want? Because in the long run, my biggest fear is mis-selling a role. Having a lot of candidates come to me and go, oh, I'm in a role that was mis-sold to me. It's nothing like what they described in the interview process or whatever. Or people coming out of an interview going, oh, I was asked all these questions, I was bombarded, I was, my skill set was delved into, but I have no further information about the role. I don't know anything more about the team setup or the company. And so what are they getting out of it? And they're going to walk away having said a lot, but not got anything out of it. So we really try to make sure that it's more of a discussion-based situation. And I guess the interviews, especially how we often manage them here, is I've already sort of had a discussion with them. I'm collaborating with the candidate already. How can I support you? Here's the next steps. I'm here if you have any questions throughout or in between the process as well. And so when they're in the interview, I've already assessed, their sort of culture fit, the logistical elements and things like that, and their motivators, what they're looking for their career as well. So that, as I said, each candidate is an individual, so the team can really hone in on specific elements associated with them. What can we provide in this role in the team for your career progression? These elements seem to be a little bit lapsed. Can we provide some sort of upskilling elements for there with any skill gaps that there might be? And really hone in on what's associated with the role. But yeah, really have that back and forth. So we're constantly reminding hiring managers about that element as well, for sure.
I'm sorry, Joe, you were
Yeah, I was going to say, do you find like in that culture piece around the hiring managers, like getting on board with that, are they pretty quick to the punch? Like, are they still kind of in the mindset of, hey, I've got to figure out these firm requirements, or is that kind of come more from the legacy of kind of recruitment thinking?
Well, yeah, it is made easier by I'm extremely lucky that the hiring managers and teams that I collaborate with are very collaborative themselves. They're very understanding. They're very open to the advice and suggestions that we make. We obviously have a background I have a background in agency recruitment. The other guys in my team have an amazing background in the recruitment process from lots of different companies themselves. And so everyone brings a unique element. We have a saying at Flybuys called "Be You with Us," is a slogan that we use, and everyone brings their own element. But we always remind people that obviously we want them to showcase their element in the interview as well. So be yourself, just talk about things, because this is a team that the candidate's potentially going to be working with. So we want you to be able to give a transparent interpretation of what it's going to be like working with you, and have that, like I said, peer-to-peer discussion. Yeah, I feel like I didn't really answer that question.
No. I guess it sounds like at Flybuys you have a candidate relationship service, I guess, which is really, it works for you guys. But what would you so say like BHP is one of our customers here at Video My Job, and they have something like 600,000 applicants a year with 15,000 roles, some crazy numbers. How do you, I guess, scale that sort of relationship mindset?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously we're at a phase now with Flybuys refreshing the brand once we became independent a couple of years ago, and we've expanded a lot. We've to give people some scope of scale. We've gone from around 20 people to 300 people in the last couple of years. So it's been obviously a lot of growth. And as part of that, you do have that flexibility to spread your wings and implement change and look at new processes and things like that. So we've been able to have that flexibility. But when you become obviously a lot larger organization, and I know there's only, I know only too well, there's only so much time in the day. And it is a real struggle. And so obviously having this sort of personable approach and adding in all these elements does take a little bit of extra time, but it's my personal opinion that little bit of extra touch goes a long way, especially for long-term relationships, and especially for our environment, which is mainly based around that permanent engagement options as well. So we want that long-term sort of relationship that's going on as well, and lots of growth that's in the pipeline for Flybuys as well. So we want to really hone in on all these different elements, because whether it might not be the right role for you right now, but we might have something in the future. So it's better to really hone in on, what we need for now, what you're looking for your future. If it aligns, if it's a win-win situation, fantastic. If not, then let's sort of part ways amicably, and we'll look into some things in the future. So I get it, that obviously you can't do it in every environment. And this is very unique to Flybuys, that I've been able to have that flexibility and stuff like that. But I also think that there are some small elements that go a long way, like in larger organizations, that you could implement. So, for example, we use our system to text message and collaborate and communicate with our candidates throughout the process. And something that I do often is leading up to the interview, I just send a little text message just to remind people I'm here. If you need anything, are you ready for your interview today? All good to go? And I just send them that link to the candidate coach site that I will touch on later as well. Just a reminder of, obviously, if you haven't seen it yet, maybe just jump on there, look into Flybuys a little bit more. There's some information on there. Maybe look into the practice interview questions as you're gearing up for the interview, just to get yourself in that mindset. So we try to just touch on this, and that can be automated. So I'm working with our connection with that tool at the moment to implement that as an automated thing. So at the moment, I jump in and I find their profile, I send them this message with a template. But you can automate these things and set up the interviews at this time, half an hour or an hour, or the morning of the interview. Just send them the text, and they really feel that support. You're in your corner, sort of feel. So little things like that are probably definitely there. Or in this digitized world, just sending links to people that want to be proactive and look into information and stuff like that. So just send them out a good prep. When I set up the interviews, I always send like a really detailed synopsis and of what the interview is going to entail. So especially in this virtual world, you're just going to have people pop up on your screen. You're not going to be able to have someone walking down the hallway greeting you, hello, come to the meeting room, here's blah, blah, whatever. It's just bam, they're in front of your face. So I provide like LinkedIn links so that they can look at their background. There might be an icebreaker there. They might have worked for the same company or the same team in the past. Little things like that. And then obviously a full position description always, of course, and sort of what to expect so they can best prepare themselves for the interview as well.
Yeah, that one around sharing a lot more depth around what the interview is going to cover, what it's about. It's like that's always occurred to me as like a strange situation to go into a meeting with somebody that won't tell you everything that they're going to cover. Because in the real world, in the job, like that's why, hey, what's this meeting going to about? You're going to get a clear agenda. You can prepare yourself. Versus like, do we really want people to come in unprepared to an interview? Like as a hiring manager, definitely not. I want them to be totally prepared and clear what we're going to talk about so they can give me their best version in that conversation. So
especially when you've got people like 15, 20 years, like we were saying before, career history, and you've got an interview for an hour, even if it's longer, but let's just say an hour for now. How do you talk about, especially when it's supposed to be a two-way conversation? So let's say you've got half that time to talk and there's no breaths in between. You've got half an hour then to explain all of the value that you can add and all of your experience from the last 15 years. Very, very difficult. So you also, as you say, want to be able to hone in on what you should be focusing on.
Great advice. Before we, I guess, move into the second topic around the candidate coach, which I'm really excited for you to unpack and let everyone know about. If anyone has any questions just off the things we've been talking about, please pop them in the chat. Paul's in the background. He's going to be triaging those to us. But I think Jay has a few questions too that he'd love to ask.
Yeah, so under the context, I mean, just a shout out for questions is really, keen to hear what people think or any other things you want to dig into around, interrogation versus the collaborative style that Michael, you've shared today. So, I mean, further to that, from your perspective, your philosophy, like how does this play out for different role types? Like if we're talking about, say, leadership or like technical skill sets or higher volume categories, like what's your perspective on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So that goes back to, again, let me just say, like, it's not, just me. Obviously, this is my title. It's a very team collaborative effort. I just want to sort of reiterate that. But something that I'm very keen on, and you touch on the design thinking. So Eden Haddock, amazing mentor and member of our team, did a good design thinking course, has gotten the rest of the team onto this course as well. And so to implement design thinking into the process is really valuable. Just having that mindset of thinking about the user, asking lots of questions, and really setting things up from the foundation of the process and moving forward before you delve into things too deeply. So something that I'm always doing at the sort of initial stage, when you sit down with hiring managers, talk through the requirement, I really question them about where this has come from, what the person's going to be doing, why someone wants to join this team, what the opportunities are, and things like that. And then we talk through the process, all these different elements. So there was a quote in that design thinking course from Albert Einstein. I think he said, if I had an hour to solve a problem, I'd spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and then 5 minutes solving it, or thinking about solutions, sort of thing. So it's really about setting that up from the get-go. Lost my train of thought again. because there's so much to talk about.
Yeah, like, so does that mean, like, I assume, like, especially if you're talking about design thinking, I assume it's less about, hey, how to create. I mean, you're trying to get away from a place where you've got a set path that has to have the same milestones and be the same every time. So I assume, it's a little bit about,
Right, yeah.
how do you then tailor that for different role types, and how does it make total sense for those people? Yeah.
The different levels, of course. So yeah, as part of that requirement sync session, we obviously talk about what's going to be best for that process. So how are we going to really evaluate the candidate, but also provide them with a really good experience as well. So for example, for a more junior role, you might want to really focus on their career development and what opportunities there are. So we talk through what that's going to be, sort of to preempt them and sort of provide that information. And I can touch on it, but they can really delve on, okay, this is the sort of mentor that we'll set you up with and stuff like that in the team, so we can really give you that exposure. We have other initiatives that we can get them to sort of talk about in the interview, like shadow initiatives and things like that, to really sort of look into getting exposure of other elements across the business that they want to get scope to that might not be specifically integrated into that particular role as well. But then you've got more senior roles where you really want to hone in on say those leadership qualities and things like that. And so, for example, we had a principal solution engineer, which is really sort of a blend of principal engineering, tech lead, people management aspects. So I collaborated with one of our architects to implement sort of like an assessment session where we got most of the team that they were going to, like the squad that they were going to be working with. And it was very detailed and designed to that particular role to assess like how they would collaborate. So we created an individual and unique test, like a test or assessment to involve them in a mock collaborative session. So here's a scenario, here's what's going on, something comes in, how are you going to prioritize, what questions are you going to ask the team to make sure that things can be delivered properly. So it's really a case-by-case basis, and that's something that I'm always focused on. I work with the hiring managers on that each role, each candidate, it works both sides, is unique and individual. So what's the best for this? We don't have a set process that we're going to use for every single role, every different level of position either.
Gotcha.
And of course, with so many newly created roles, especially with Flybuys, you can really have that flexibility of, depending on the skill set as well. So I'll give you another example. We had a candidate that was ideal for a particular skill set that we really needed to bring into a particular team. And so they'd already talked about a few things, but because we had headhunted them, we really still wanted to build that engagement. So the candidate had a really good idea of where the team were at, what the role required, what they were being tasked to do if they moved in there. But I was like, because I checked back in with the candidate, okay, we really need to build that engagement. So I set up a final round with just the head of that department. And they were really creative. They created a PowerPoint presentation on how do we get insert candidate name to join Flybuys. And obviously that came across really well to the candidate. It was personalized, it was detailed, and it was specific to them. And that came across really well. And they ended up accepting the offer and joining. So little things like that can go a long way.
So I was going to say, to play it back, it sounds like the process, rather than the process being the specific journey for that candidate to go through, the process is you've got a process that figures out what is the journey that needs to be created each time. If that...
That makes sense.
It's a little bit, yeah.
The journey of the journey. Sure. Absolutely. And it's something that I talk through the candidates because it's a valid question that they constantly have for us. What's the process? Because I know that some organizations have 3, 4, 5 interview rounds, and that's set. No matter if they've already sort of covered off everything, you're still going to have those other rounds because they want to make it equal for the candidate. And depending on the organization's size or whatever, I completely understand it's unique to that organization, but yeah, I talked through the candidate and said, well, this is the first step. Following our conversation, our phone screen, I think it's going to be best for you to meet these 2 people because that's what we really need to hone in on first, both for your benefit and for ours. And then following the feedback of that interview, we can look into a couple of options. It might be this, it might be that, but let's just see how that first one goes. And then I from the feedback, I can coordinate that next round.
Yeah. Cool. One more question on this topic as well, just around so this broader philosophy around, okay, how do we take people on that journey, but also make sure it's not like it's just a one-way interrogate. We need to validate all these things to make sure you're capable of this job. It's like, what what conversations has that led to for you guys in terms of how you take that and make it clearer earlier in the journey, say talent attraction? Like, because people won't know until they get through to the stage and they're talking to you. Has there been any collaboration there to try to make it clearer and give that impression earlier in the process?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's elements that are constantly ongoing in the background, and if we're talking about sort of painting the picture and talking about what we're doing here, getting a feel for the teams and the process, whatever it is, like Sarah Saxton, amazing talent manager in my team, does a lot of work with our LinkedIn profile. I know lots of businesses do a lot with their LinkedIn pages, but really trying to paint that picture as well. With the adverts, we obviously have a link to a video that sort of encompasses and showcases our hybrid working, has some images of current employees doing things and stuff like that. So just to give that sort of feel when you're on the advert as well. But we try to keep the adverts really colloquial and specific to describing and painting that picture as well throughout that. So when people apply, we obviously say thanks for your application. Little things like that. Some people don't even know if their application has been received. So simply letting the candidate know your application has been received, we're reviewing it. In the meantime, here's a link to find out more information about Flybuys. Here's another link to the candidate coach site so that you can better prepare yourself for the interview if we get to that stage, and things like that. So again, in this digitized world, it's quite easy to provide links to pages and information that people can access very easily from a click of a button without you having to really spend much time on it.
Okay.
Good segue into our second topic, which is about Candidate Coach. So could you just give us a little bit of a rundown about what Candidate Coach is all about?
Yes. So again, from that sort of like passion aspect of mine, but also, again, team effort. It wasn't just me that worked on this, but it was a lot of collaboration amongst the team. We started working with a connection of ours, James Whitcomb, who's a recruiter himself. He's equally passionate about this candidate experience in the agency world and sort of setting candidates up to interview to the best of their capability for that as well. So we collaborated with him on sort of creating I'll show you, creating a website to be able to just support people. And we wanted to make sure it was free. So it's very low cost to the business, but it's something that no matter whether people come in and end up joining Flybuys or whether, we don't find that right fit and they leave, we wanted everyone to, whether it be, in person or virtually, wanted to leave happy. And so we set up this thing that, let me share this for a second. There we go. Can you see that? There we go. So this is our Flybuys Candidate Coach site. It's free. Everyone can access it. I actually had a talent manager in my network that I was telling about this, and they said, "Oh, so if it's free, can I just share the links to my candidates in my organisation as well?" I said, "Feel free. It's got our branding all over it, but go for your life." We want people to be able to access it, no matter where you're coming from and where you're up in the process. So you'll always win if you come through the process with Flybuys, no matter what happens in the end anyway. So we having just some images here, especially this was created during the COVID epidemic. So we wanted to obviously showcase, this is people that actually work at Flybuys. So just before you saw our CEO and someone from my team, just to get a sense of sort of the colloquial vibe that we've got going here at Flybuys. Here's our branding, be you with us. And then just obviously the candidate coaches who we collaborated with on this went back and forth and really designed it around what we wanted and what's best for our business and to have that Flybuys feel. So I know that James started working with a couple of other organisations to sort of test this out as well. But we've had a really, really good feedback on this so far. So you've got access to everything basically on this front page. Here's Eden and Yash from my team doing a collab session. But simple things going right from sort of resume templates. Like I said, it depends on where you're at as a candidate in your journey. So if you haven't interviewed for a long time, and we have a saying in recruitment. I don't know if you guys listening will sort of rapport with this, but some of the best candidates in the market are not the best at interviewing because they don't do it very often. So just to remind people of how to tweak your CV or any support and suggestions we can have around that. Again, with that similar situation, interview questions, just sort of tips and tricks depending on different sort of departments that you might be looking into. A checklist, especially in the virtual world, setting yourself up for video interviews was massive, because we've got a lot of people doing that. And we do have a hybrid model that's going to continue now as well. I know that a lot of businesses are encouraging people back to the office. We have that beautiful choice. So whether it was during epidemic or not, we're going to continue with those video interviews primarily, so people can set themselves up to do that comfortably in their own space. This was a huge element for me that I really wanted to implement as well. From a personal note as well, going through, mental health sort of issues through all the lockdowns, whether you've been made redundant, whether you're really struggling to find a role, it's a competitive market. So we really wanted to provide this support just for mental health links, because we also provide this link at the beginning, in the middle with the interview process, and at the end, whether they, especially if they're rejected for a role. Here's some tips and tricks that might help for your next interview process as well. So as part of that might have been the 5th, 10th, 20th rejection that they've had in their job hunt, and they might start to be feeling pretty down. So having mental health support was a really strong focus of mine, to have that accessible. And very much supported by Flybuys in the business on that element as well. Blogs, just keeping up to date with industry information. This is constantly updated as well, but lots of different elements, and we constantly want to grow and add to this in that regard as well. Obviously, a link to our careers site, so you can look at other roles that are in the business as well if you missed something when you were searching. And there's some practice tests on here, and it's not just for the tech teams that I mainly collaborate with. Obviously, you've got the main tech stack that we work with, so you can sort of delve into that and just check your capabilities or just refresh yourself. But also, we get a lot of candidates that this might be their first job in Australia. So obviously, just looking into English and second languages, just touching up on that, sort of different team management skills and assessments as well. So you can look into where you sort of sit there. And of course, just a quick overview. So there's no excuses not to know a little bit about Flybuys before you're going into the interview, about us, talking about our values. We like to send people a little fun quiz, which really assesses sort of what alignment they have with different values that we have here at Flybuys. And I'm not sure if you can still see my video, but you also get some personalized swag. Mine obviously is be passionate, because I'm very passionate. But it also has our other values on there: be generous, be united, be relevant, do the right thing. And it gives you sort of that strong association and connection with the business and our values as well, as you go through the process. And there's no right or wrong answers, but it's just a little fun quiz that we send people throughout the process as well. Obviously, a bit more insight into our tech stack and things like that. And then this at the top right is something that's happening every month. We collaborate with James on workshops that he provides, and just giving access to people to jump on specific workshops that they might want to upskill in certain areas and things like that. So it's just something that we really wanted, to provide that extra level of support for everyone involved.
Such an amazing site. Do you have, I guess, throughout the process of you actually creating Candidate Coach, any learnings that you could share with anyone who perhaps wants to create something that's really value-led, value first for applicants?
Yeah, absolutely. And this goes back to that design thinking, asking the end user, asking lots of questions, compiling that research and that data before. Flybuys has an amazing, which has always impressed me from day dot before I even joined, but that very people-centric focus. So we do a lot of surveys. We check in with our teams. Where are the challenge points? What's going on? Very transparent about providing the results of those surveys as well, and suggesting solutions to what that might be. And quick example, obviously working from home, lots of people having too much screen time. We did a survey, we provided the results. Okay, people are feeling like there's too many back-to-back meetings going on. We talked about possible solutions, did another survey, people voted on the results and possible solutions, and then we implemented Wednesday afternoon meeting free zone. So little things like that, and there's multiple examples I could go on with, but little things like that, listening to your employees, what do you want, what's going to help you thrive and work to the best of your ability, And then we'll look into different tools or processes to be able to uplift that culture and that environment for you. So this came from that as well. I'm constantly checking in with candidates. What did you think about the site? Is it helpful? Do you think we need to add anything? And it was really nice to see that we did cover off most things which are helpful for, as we talked about before, lots of different levels. So more junior people are going to get more experience from, okay, I don't really know how to write a CV. The more simple elements of being a candidate, right through to understanding the business a bit better and maybe doing some technical tests. I've had senior enterprise solution architects rave about, oh, this is really good. I got better insights. It helped me prepare going into that interview. So it's good that it works across the board for all different levels. And yeah, just constantly getting that user feedback is vital.
Yeah, it looks like there's something in there for everyone. So such a great site. Do we have any more questions in the chat, perhaps for Michael on Candidate Coach? If not, then Jay's got a couple. Maybe we could ask before we jump into storytelling.
Jump in. Yeah, Michael. I mean, I think just playing it back to you, it's like it seems really obvious that you guys have gone that particular asset. The way you're thinking about it is completely, like Brett said, like value focused. It's not like you're there to push the message and say, look how good Flybuys is, look how good it is to work here and all those things, but you're really leading with complete value first for them. And so you're doing it through actions rather than just trying to say that's what you care about, which is great. I think what when you and the team think about the longer term vision for this, I'm curious, could you see yourself expanding to other channels or other forms of content like podcast or something like that, where it continues to expand on the value for candidates?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we looked into, we're constantly discussing this. Like I said, it's always a work in progress. We've been talking about videos, sort of implementing links to sort of meeting the hiring manager or having a video from the hiring manager, more information about the role, so that before we even contact them when they're applying, like we said at the initial stages, they can get an impression of the team and also find out more information about the role from the horse's mouth, as they say, instead of just seeing another advert. So we're looking into all these different elements. There's lots of other ideas floating around as well, but it's really nice to just have that freedom, I guess, as well, and openness to change. I think is absolutely step one. So some people feel like, oh, change is a big thing, or we've already got these processes implemented, and I get it, especially with larger organizations like you mentioned before. It is hard to sort of change the processes broadly and across the whole organization. I totally understand it's not that black and white. There's all these different elements to consider, but being able to sort of just have that openness of, are there little things we could change? Listening to people, I think it sounds simple, but I speak to a lot of candidates, I'm sure we all do, every day. And to hear the amount of candidates that just say, look, I'm not listened to, or things were missold, or whatever, it's amazing the power of just being able to listen to people. So your team might have the answers of little things that you might be able to implement as well. So that's all I can say.
Cool. And then we've got a couple more questions. So off the back of that, particularly when you're saying it's like kind of having that freedom, what's the payback? Like, how are you thinking of, how is you and the team thinking about measuring success of this? Is it more on like the digital marketing type metrics, or is it a bit more around candidate feedback, what you're hearing from them? How's the team thinking about this, and then showing that back to stakeholders?
Yeah, 100%. So like I said, not just internally with those surveys, but external surveys are really important to us as well. And I was having a look at it earlier today to see if I could share some data with you. And I was actually quite proudly surprised myself as well with how they're doing. So basically throughout the process, and especially at that rejection phase, we do provide a link for an individual survey, which goes through a lot of detailed questions on, were you kept up to date? Did you get a good sense of the business and the role and things like that? So lots of questions associated with all elements of the process. And currently across the whole people experience team, we've got a 99 to 100% success rate for the candidate experience, which is amazing. And obviously we do look at this data quite consistently. Zoe and my team looks at this quite regularly as well. And that obviously helps us look into new initiatives where, again, we might be able to uplift things as well. So that's the external sort of data. Obviously, I said I'm speaking with people. I'm getting that verbal feedback as well with how we can increase and benefit from this as well. But we do like to see the official data to be able to provide that in LT meetings and things like that. So yeah, it's really good to obviously always be providing surveys so we can sort of get that feedback from the market.
Question in the chat.
Yeah. So yeah, we've got a question come through here. So because just read more around sourcing strategies. So Michael, what are some of your most successful sourcing strategies? Any thoughts on that?
Absolutely. Well, I feel like that's a completely different piece. And like I said, it's very independent to each role. The thing that I most enjoy about Flybuys is, again, that flexibility and openness to being able to implement a different strategy for each piece. So again, very lucky to work with teams that are extremely collaborative. It's not just like, oh, okay, here's the requirement. We're going to go away and shortlist some profiles and then come back to you. I have that immediate access with hiring managers and the teams. And so it's a constant chat session going on, or can we just have another sync because we're struggling with what's going on? Can we think about different ways to do things? So there's no easy way to answer that because it depends on the role. It depends on how much traction we get initially, whether we change that process or not. And so it's, I understand this is a bit of a fluff piece answer, but yeah, it really depends. So I really can't answer that in detail, but it's nice to be able to collaborate closely with your teams and utilize their networks as well. So I have a very strong network across the board. I've been tech recruiting, for example, for a while. I've managed my own recruitment desk back in agency as well. But my network aside, we've got our talent community on the system. So we can obviously message people. We send out messages to aligned profiles of, are you still in the market? Are you interested in this role? So we send out a lot of messages to our internal talent community first. We obviously talk with the business about if they've got any referrals. Referrals are huge at the moment. If you're not comfortable talking to them, or there's someone that you're not close to, you might have worked with them a couple of years ago, obviously let us do the cold calling and we'll investigate whether they might be open to the market. And there's a couple of other elements, like we highlight different roles on LinkedIn to really get that exposure and stuff as well. So we're constantly highlighting different roles of the week. And we really, like I said, transparently communicate with the business. So when we have a new requirement, we have very fun Friday huddle sessions every Friday where we do, some quizzes and things like that and sort of lead off into the weekend. But we update, successes of the teams of what's happened that week for the business. I introduce new talent and sort of talk about any requirements there. And we get some hiring managers to maybe come on and say, look, we've got this opportunity. This is what's happened with the role, or maybe it's a maternity cover, or maybe it's a newly created role. This is the scope we're looking for. So again, collaboration, communication is key for success.
Cool.
Awesome.
That's it for questions on that topic.
Great. Conscious of time, I just have one more question, Michael, that I really want to ask you, because I know that we have talked about this previously. Storytelling. So I know that you use stories to engage with candidates right at the beginning of the journey. I'm just really interested in what are the types of stories you're telling? Where are you finding these stories from? And what do candidates really want to hear right now? Big question, but.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And this sort of stemmed from my understanding, again, in this virtual world, but obviously this sort of came about with people, during the epidemic. So usually you would be able to go into the office, is my point. You'd be able to walk in there, get a vibe, read the room, feel what the sort of culture feels like, look at who's collaborating with who, see what people are wearing even, get that sense of the business and what's going on. When we're interviewing throughout the epidemic, and again, like I said, we're going to continue with that hybrid model. So how do you get that across to people? So I really try to paint an overall picture and preempt questions that people are going to have. And again, we've all been candidates. So I think about what I would want to know. What's the sort of look and feel and vibe of the office? What are other people doing? How can I best collaborate with my teams? Are they going into the office? Are most people working from home? Whatever. So, and there's all these different elements that add up to the culture of a business. So I'm always keeping tabs on what my people experience team are doing and what they're doing in terms of new initiatives, projects, and things like that, and what's happening in all the different teams that I look after as well. So what have you guys been working on this week? What's going on? So to give you an example, so I'll talk to people about, so if they start talking about, okay, work-life balance is really key for me. I've got kids. I want to make sure that I look after that. Oh, during the lockdown, we had kids at home, and it was quite stressful. So to be able to showcase the support and leadership that we have here at Flybuys, I will use an example that our CEO used to give up his own time and do. I think it was weekly or fortnightly, but he would be providing virtual book reading sessions, and there were like 12 or 15 kids that were jumping on this as well, but just to alleviate some time for the parents to be able to sort of focus on their work. And so he was just doing those sessions and things like that, showcasing, sort of like talking about the Friday huddle, talking about how we do surveys and listen to our employees, talking about the Be Well programs that we have and how we sort of really support that mindfulness and the just overall well-being of our employees and things like that. So yeah,
Beautiful.
just talking through all these little stories can really sort of help build up a picture of someone that knows nothing except looking at a screen and is or not even looking at a screen, just talking to me on the phone,
Yeah.
or just seeing the Flybuys website that tells you nothing about what it's actually like to work there, and you can't walk into the office. Now you can,
Yeah.
but back in the day. So we really like to provide that information. Yeah.
Yeah. Giving like a window into your culture. So important. You can do that through stories so easily. So we have 5 minutes over. So our last question, which you already know is coming, is what is the one question that you would like to pass on to our next guest on the series, something that perhaps could help you and your team and the work that you're doing in 2022?
Yeah, 100%. So I was just going to ask, like, how are you guys, how are other talent acquisition teams utilizing the gig economy? So gig economy, like daily rate contracts and stuff like that. So at Flybuys, we mostly have permanent employment. We obviously want to set people up for that accountability, longevity, support their career growth long term, things like that. We don't deal with a lot of daily rate contractors, but I'm well aware, speaking with all these candidates in the market, that there are a lot of candidates that are associating or transitioning themselves into that gig economy. So I guess, how are other teams tapping into that specific talent pool and utilizing that as well?
Awesome. Such an interesting topic. Great. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Michael, and sharing with us all your expertise. It was great. We've got just the last slide that Paul might pop up, just with the QR code from last time. If anyone would like the recording from today, if you have any other guests to suggest. Also, if you want to connect with Michael, his LinkedIn link to his LinkedIn profile is in the chat as well. So go ahead and connect. And yeah, do you have the QR code, the slide there, Paul, or no? It's coming. Yeah, great. Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. And yeah, thank you again, Michael, for jumping on to Talking Talent.
Absolute pleasure. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, Michael.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.